Welcome to Ink and Flame. I'm your host, Tina Kutras, and we're sitting down with Bethanie Finger to talk about her series, More Than Life. Hi, Bethany. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. I am enjoying summer and never wanting to come indoors. It's making it challenging. How about you?
I actually live in the desert, so I spend most of my time indoors. It is currently 112 outside, so
Oh my God.
I am staying safe in my air conditioning at the moment.
No doubt. Yeah, I can't say that I've ever experienced that kind of heat before.
It's a bit much. It's a bit much.
So the front cover of your book is Ocean.
It is.
We'll get into that. So I'm just wondering if maybe it was a daydream when you were cooking outside one day.
No, I'm actually a military spouse, so we move around every 2 to 3 years. I've always had a love of the ocean and water, so actually being in the desert is not fun for me. But we got moved here about 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. I myself am almost like I'm a stone's throw away from the Bay of Fundy in Nova Scotia. So
That sounds
I'm quite
nice.
literally just at the bottom of the hill from the ocean.
Yes. Before here, we were living in Mississippi and we were a 1 mile walk from the beach.
Nice.
And it was glorious. I went there almost every day.
That's beautiful. So let's get talking about you a little.
Okay.
So, what's your earliest memory of falling in love with books?
So I have a lot of memories from my childhood of reading in general. My mother always read to us when we were little. But I'm a reader for life moment, I was 7 and I went to my aunt's for the summer and they were reading Harry Potter. And when I came home, I wanted to finish reading it. And my mom looked at it and said, "This is above your reading level and I don't want to read it and explain the whole thing to you." And I nagged and begged and pleaded. And finally, she bought me the first Harry Potter book and she bought me a dictionary and she said, "Don't ask me any questions." And
What?
that first copy was covered in pencils because I would underline any word I didn't know, I would underline it. And in the margin, I would scribble what the word meant in it. And that I was hooked after that. After that, all I wanted to do was find the next book.
Wow. So I have to ask, do you still have those versions of the Harry Potter books that
No,
you read? That's too bad, eh?
actually, when we moved to Mississippi, so in 2018, the truck that we moved with got water damage, and that was one of the boxes. I ended up losing, I think over 200 books during that move because they were covered in water and mildew. And yeah, by the time we finally opened the boxes after moving, they were no more.
That's so tragic.
Yeah. But up
But
until a few years ago, I did have it still.
that's cool. I bet you that doesn't happen in the desert, though.
No, probably not.
So, as a librarian, you've spent a lot of time surrounded by books. How was that? How has that influenced you as a writer?
So being a librarian, I spend a lot of time around books, but I don't actually spend a lot of time reading while I'm at work. It's a lot, logistics and clerical and cataloging and all the stuff behind the scenes that doesn't sound fun. But for those of us who like to organize, it's actually really fun. But it's definitely influenced me as a writer because sometimes I'll think about what would this story look like if I was trying to put it a library, like where would it get cataloged? And then it helps me to sort of redefine the parameters of my books. So for example, deciding that this book would be young adult, new adult, or adult fiction. The main characters are between the ages of 18 and 21. So it really could have fallen into any of those three categories. And as a librarian, I think I had a little bit more insight into where it would best fit categorically.
Cool. Yeah, because I am just writing. I'm not really paying attention to those categories, I suppose.
It once you start, it's like the back door. Once you know what's behind the curtain, you always think about it.
Yeah, no doubt. So, do you remember the first story that you ever wrote?
I remember writing a lot of poems and songs when I was really little. And then in junior high, I wrote a whole book, and I didn't find out until a couple years ago that it was actually fan fiction. I wrote the book and I remember writing it, and I remember like a vague premise of what it was about. And when this book got published, my mom was like, "I still have that." And I asked if I could see it, and it was a Babysitter's Club fan fiction. And I didn't even
Whoa.
realize it until recently. So that was the very first novel that I wrote start to finish.
And how do you feel about it now? Because I'm
It
assuming
has
that your
some
mother let you read
problems.
it.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of gaps and a lot of over explanations, and but it was also really fun to sort of revisit what 13-year-old Bethany saw the world and how she looked at the world, because as an adult I think of things very differently than I did at that age.
Yeah, no doubt. So, what was the creative spark? Like, what inspired you for the More Than Life series?
So More Than Life has two origins. One is I lost my father very unexpectedly, and I ended up seeing a grief counselor. And one of the ways that she helped me cope was she said, if you're a writer, write. Write what you're thinking, write what you're feeling, write about your memories. And so I did. I wrote, what happened when I found out. I wrote about the services. I wrote about trying to navigate life after losing my dad. And then flash forward to NaNoWriMo 2022. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted my project for NaNoWriMo to be. And I had all these chapters of my personal experiences written. And I thought, well, how could I turn that into a book? So I go to my phone where I have years of notes that mean nothing. And there was a note on my phone that had been there for several lifetimes. And it was a conversation between two people where one person said, I know it sounds improbable. And the other person said, it's not improbable, it's impossible. And I thought, well, who are these two people? Why are they so different? And what are they having a conversation about? And when I took that and I connected it with my father and all these memories that I had of him, I thought of the ocean because my father was a sailor and he took me sailing my whole life. And what's a bigger part of the ocean than the lost island of Atlantis? So I decided to make my own.
Very nice. And it's a little tribute to your father?
Yes, I would say for sure.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, the series blends historical fantasy with romance and adventure. How did you approach weaving these elements together and to create such a rich world?
Originally, it started as contemporary. There's a lot of science now, which makes it very hard to have a mythical lost island when you can go and see the Titanic under the water. So I ended up deciding to create it as historical. And then I was close to 75% of the way through the book. And I wrote a scene where the character Jaspar was trying to light a fire on the boat so he could cook the fish. And for some reason, I wrote that he like pointed his finger and flame came out and lit the fire. And that's a really cool scene, but there wasn't any magic in my book. So magic got added into the whole series. And then
Okay.
the world building, I wanted it to be its own space. If I had it in a place that actually exists, then I'm bogged down by historical accuracies. But I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to do whatever I wanted within the realm of the story. So I based a lot of the climate and landscape off of Ireland and Wales because that's where my father's family is from. And those elements sort of lent themselves into making the story bigger and bigger. And I, as a writer, I love texture. I want to know what it smells like. I want to know what the temperature is. I want to know what it feels like outside. Is it humid? Is it dry? Is it cold? Is it wet? So a lot of that sort of helped expand the world building because I'm over here doing research about what would the temperature in July be in Ireland on the coast in 1701 versus how do I make that as a part of my story? And I think every bit of research I did just helped expand that world even more.
Very cool. And you're absolutely right. The benefit of creating your own thing is the freedom to create. So that's very cool. The title More Than Life is so intriguing. How did you come up with it, and what does it mean in the context of the story?
So the title is from something that my dad used to say, I love you more than life itself, which I ended up making. That was the last thing I said to my father. And so it's the last thing that my main character says to her father. Uh, Writing that scene, I felt like that was sort of a placeholder as the title of the book. For the longest time, it was just a placeholder. And then I started writing book two, and I got the idea of, well, this book is going to be more about legend and lore and adventure and the actual quest. And I still had more than life. So I thought, well, I could have more than life and I could have more than legend. And if I can come up with one more title, then I can keep that consistent throughout the trilogy. So that's sort of where the title came from.
Beautiful. I feel like a lot of that would be very challenging to write with the experiences that are behind it.
Challenging, but it was also a very good coping mechanism for me. As humans, we sort of um, guard ourselves from those tougher experiences. If you pay attention to books, movies, TV shows, grief is not something that's experienced. It's skipped over a lot of times. If you look at Grey's Anatomy, every time somebody dies, they do a skip forward by like a month or 2 months or 3 months or something to that extent. If you go back and you look at a lot of the dystopian novels, oh, I don't have time to deal with that because I have the world to save, which is good. That's a great way to show compartmentalization. Tracy Wolf does it beautifully in the Crave series, where her main character says, I'm going to put that in a folder called stuff I don't have time to deal with right now. But I wanted to explore actually doing that. What if you don't have a regime to overthrow and you have nothing to occupy your time other than all of these thoughts and all of these memories and all of this grief? And so the main character, I allowed her to really have those experiences, and it helped me a lot when I was coping through it myself.
Wow, that's powerful. So I feel like there's more to talk about there because another question just doesn't seem to do that any justice, because that was a very powerful statement. So did you always know you wanted to be a young adult romantasy writer?
No, I didn't even necessarily know that I wanted to be a writer. It was something I enjoyed. It was something I had fun with. It was, a hobby. And then when I was in college, a short story I wrote actually got picked up and printed by the Chicago Sun-Times. I got a little tiny paycheck of like $55, and I took my mom and my sisters and my dad and we all went out to dinner, and it was
How
the
old
first
did you
time I
say you were for that?
realized I was 18.
Okay.
And it was the first time I realized like I could actually make this a career if I wanted to. It Being a writer and being a published writer are two very different things. And I actually this book didn't get a contract until I was 33. So I spent most of my adult life honing my craft and writing story after story and querying to different agents and publishers. And this was actually just the first one that got picked up. And I haven't always written young adult. It just so happened that this one fell into that category.
Okay. And do you have plans to expand that,
So for now,
not just that series, but also like
yeah.
spread your wings, as it were?
um, so I do have plans to expand. I'm actually working on two spinoffs, More Than Dreams and More Than Destiny, which will be out later this year. I also have another young adult series that I wrote a couple of years ago and I shelved it. It didn't get any traction when I was searching for a publisher, so I shelved it. But my current publisher is really excited about it. And so when I finish More Than Destiny, I'll start working on that. And it's also young adult, but it would be like 2, 3 years from now before that one came into the world.
Nice. And you enjoy staying in the young adult romantasy.
For now, yes. I think I enjoy the young adult because there's something very innocent about getting to relive your life at that age and sort of look at the world without the jaded eyes of someone who's had a few extra years of experience. And as a reader, I've always navigated towards the young adult section, even as a grown up. So I think I'll probably stay there for a while. I definitely have ideas for older content and more fiction based, but nothing that I'm pursuing at the moment.
Cool. So, the More Than Life series explores themes like grief, love, secrets, and found families. What
Mhm.
drew you to these themes, and how do they resonate with you personally? So, we've already discussed your father and how the grief aspect comes
Mhm.
into play, but what about the other aspects of it?
But I think that the found family aspect just came from my own personal experience with developing a found family. I have a pretty big family on in online that I carry with me every time I relocate so that I don't have to sort of miss out on having that. And then love, I'm in love. And my marriage is a slow burn, so it's really easy for me to tap into that category.
Nice. You gotta love the social media family because it's constantly growing and changing and evolving, and the Bookstagram world is so incredibly supportive, I find.
During COVID, it was huge because during COVID it was, all of my friends were online and a lot of their friends were online. And I feel like my sort of appreciation for an online presence and an online community really expanded during that time frame when we couldn't just go out and go do stuff like we normally did.
Yeah, we got comfortable with being okay with it for sure. So the relationship between Cordella and Jasper has been praised for feeling very natural. How did you approach writing their dynamic?
So actually, a lot of that came because of book two. I started writing book two, and I won't explain why, but I needed flashbacks of the two of them being in love. So I started coming up with all of these scenes that could have, moments that sparked it. So first touch or forced proximity or being vulnerable with one another. And I think combining all of those elements together just let their love story be very natural and sort of authentic to those two characters.
That's a great way to create that necessary continuity to write forward just so that you can write back.
Yeah.
Cool. So historical fantasy often involves a lot of research, and you've mentioned
Hmm.
that you did a lot of research. Did you uncover any fascinating historical details that inspired parts of your story?
So many. I mean, there's so many different aspects that are quite small, but lead you somewhere bigger if you're an author. So, for example, there's a creature in book two that is based off of a mythical creature that is only a mythical creature in the state of Colorado. And even people who live in Colorado have not heard of it. It's called the Slide Rock Bolter. And I was just researching different mountain ranges because I was doing a scene where they were hiking up a mountain and
Right?
I stumbled across mythical creatures and that. And I was like, okay, well, how do I put this in the book? There's a scene in the spinoff I'm writing right now that was inspired by a Taylor Swift song. You never know where inspiration is going to come from or how it's going to find its way into the story.
It's so fun. So, if you could live in the world more than life for a day, what would you do and where would you want to go?
I would immediately go to Anchorage Inn and I would get a drink and I would just sit there and people watch all day.
So, what's so great about that inn?
So Anchorage Inn is the staple of the entire series. So the entire first book, most of it takes place in Anchorage Inn. It's where the found family comes together. It's where they meet each other, and it's where most of the story culminates. When Cordelia loses her father, she also loses her home, her title, her place in society, and because she's a female, she has no inheritance and left with nothing else to do and no job, she winds up as basically a scullery maid at the local inn and tavern. And in a small town like this, that inn is the central hub of the community. At one point, the owner, Gladys, even says there's not a fisherman in this town that doesn't walk through my doors at least once a week. Because that was the community hub. That's where everybody went. It's the central perk, if you will. So getting to go there and experiencing that and seeing just how the entire village interacts with one another, I mean, that would be pretty spectacular.
That sounds super fun. What a great way to pull the story in. How cool. So Cordelia is such a strong and compelling protagonist. What was the most challenging part of writing her character?
Making her not annoying. Yeah, this is a girl that lost everything. And she, in the beginning, she doesn't even know how to tie her own corset or do her own hair because she grew up as a lady in society. All of these things were done for her. And she's not spoiled necessarily, but she's completely ignorant to how the rest of the world lives. And she has to navigate being a whole new person and cleaning bedpans and chucking oysters and trying to figure out how to pour drinks and prepare food. And she's doing all of that with complaining because she's earned it. And working in the fast food industry for a good portion of my life, like there's just a lot of complaining to go around.
Yeah.
But how do you make someone who's complaining all the time and who's terrible at her job relatable and somebody that people want to root for? So a lot of her stuff, it had to be really in the moment that, okay, this is a moment where it's like, I could see why she would be upset right now. And then you also have to give her lots of time for growth and lots of small accomplishments that over time really build her up as a person. And she grows and feels stronger and more confident in herself. And so hopefully the reader also going on that journey with her has a stronger connection with her.
It's giving me, I don't know if you're familiar with the movie, but Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman did a movie called Far and Away. Very
Haven't seen
similar.
it.
It's worth the watch. It's a lot of fun. It's older. It's from the late 90s, I believe. And she's from Ireland and loses everything. And watching her go through that type of situation is very similar to what you just described. And I've always loved that movie specifically because of that. It's fun to
Good.
watch. So you might want to check it out. It is fun. It's old though. I mean, it's old now. So Jasper has a lot. Is it Jaspar or Jasper?
Jaspar.
Jaspar. Okay. Has a lot of depth and complexity. How did
Hmm.
you develop his character arc throughout the series?
He needed to be a secret. So Jaspar is Cordelia's father's apprentice, and he is the person that introduces her to the world of the Lost Island of Quolaris. But I couldn't have them have an established relationship already. I wanted to show them getting to know each other and falling in love. And so in order to do that, I had to hide a lot of who he really was from her, but also from the reader. So that's where his curse came into play. And then him being cursed, well, what would it be like to live with that curse? What kind of personality would you develop? What things would you be afraid to do? What things would be easy for you to do or would come naturally to you? And so that a lot of that developed with who he would be as a person based on, his family dying when he was 12 and growing up with this curse and being alone.
Very interesting. So we have to read to find out about the curse, I'm assuming.
So the curse is in the synopsis of the book. Jaspar and his family have been cursed with non-remembrance. So nobody can remember them except for the captain, and as it turns out, Cordelia, his daughter.
Okay. That's so cool. So if Cordelia and Jasper could step out of the book and give you feedback, what do you think they would say about how you've written them?
Oh, I think they'd be pretty mad about book two. Jaspar especially would be mad about book two. I can't give away that spoiler because that's probably the best plot twist I've ever written, and I don't want to ruin it. But there are definitely challenges that they face in book two and book three that really put their connection to the test and really put their relationship to the test. In book one, we see them fall in love, but in book two and book three, we see how easy it is for life to sort of come in between two people who care about each other.
Nice. So, are there any side characters in the series that you would love to explore or, learn a little bit more of to do a spin-off or a novella or something?
So the entire spinoff that I'm doing now is based on two side characters, Marie and Russell, and they were supposed to be originally I had They weren't even in a scene. They were just mentioned offhand in the background of a scene in book two. They had like maybe one paragraph of page time, and all of it was actually in reference to Jaspar and Cordelia. It didn't really have anything to do with them. But I loved them so much that I gave them their own chapter in book three. And then I just couldn't get them out of my head. And I reached out to my publisher. I said, I have an idea for a spinoff. Would you be interested? And she said, if it's about Marie and Russell, yes. And then when I started teasing on social media, I'm going to be doing a spinoff. What do you guys think it's about? Or who do you think it should be about? Almost overwhelmingly, everyone was saying, is it Marie and Russell? Please let it be Marie and Russell. We need more of Marie and Russell. So it felt like a big validation to me that I got to explore those characters more because I just fell in love with them so much.
That is so fun. I love that people like caught it right away that
Yeah.
that is so cool. And like you said, it would be very validating as a writer for people to catch it. It's cool. So did you have any aha moments or breakthroughs while writing the series that changed the direction of it? Aside, I guess those two by themselves were kind of that, I suppose.
I can't say what it is because it's a huge plot twist, but there is a plot twist in book two that I was dedicated to writing that forced me to have to rewrite all of book one. And book one was done, edited. It had gone through beta readers. I had put it away and started working on book two. And I was so dedicated to this plot twist that I went back, I added 35,000 words, and I rewrote the entire first book. So if anybody reads book two and you get to chapter four, you'll understand what I'm talking about and why I had to rewrite everything.
That is so funny. You're the second author that I've spoken to, I think within 3 interviews. You're the second author that I've spoken to that said they had to go back after everything was done and rewrite.
And that's why my books come out together. I will not publish until they are done. So More Than Life came out, and then a month later More Than Legend, and then a month later More Than Love. And all
Beautiful.
three were completely written before they were published because I don't even now writing the spinoff, there are times when I'm like, man, maybe I should have waited because I could go back and put this in there and it's too late now. But once it's out in the world, you can't make any changes.
That's right.
So I always want to have the opportunity to go back and fix everything. So it's always written before it's published.
Hmm. That's pretty good advice, I think. So what was the most challenging scene to write in the More Than Life series?
The first chapter. The first chapter is Cordelia's reaction to finding out that her father has died. And it is almost word for word exactly what I went through when my husband told me about my father. And I wrote it and walked away. I have not looked at it. I have not edited it. I didn't even go through the line proofs. I flat out told my publisher, like, I'm going to need you to take on chapter one. It's only a page and a half, but I can't even read it.
Wow.
It
That
hits a
is
little too close.
That's pretty intense. Yeah. So yeah, I can't say I would want to have to go through something like that. That's very challenging and very brave of you. So how do you handle feedback from readers, especially when it comes to the emotional and romantic elements of your story?
So one thing that I do as an author, and I can't speak for other authors, but I personally do not read reviews. And the reason for that is because reviews are not for me. When someone goes on Goodreads and they write a review, those reviews are for other readers so that other readers know what to expect from the story and elements that they liked or didn't like as a reader. So I don't think that those are necessarily meant for me. That's not a space that I hold. When people reach out to me on like Instagram and stuff, then I will interact, but I don't go and search for reviews. I have found a lot of really good support and feedback. I haven't had any negative in terms of the love or the grief or the depression or anything really. I've been given a lot of support and a lot of positive feedback.
That's beautiful and it's wonderful advice because I think a lot of writers that read reviews that aren't really meant for them. That's a fantastic way of looking at it. would feel that like they would focus. I know I would focus on the bad instead of how many good ones you get. And you get one bad one and it's just enough to cut deep enough that, you feel it for a little while. So I really like that take. And I think I'm going to implement that in my life.
I hope that it works out for you.
I think that's genius. So I had spoken with Jessica Lee. She's an author that she was my very first interview. And she had said that every now and again, when she needs a little uplift, she'll read reviews for people like Tolkien or, people who have written legendary books just to see what their reviews are like.
Yes.
Just so that she knows that not everybody gets good reviews 100% of the time. I think that's cool advice too.
Yeah, and it's okay if you don't get a good review because sometimes that review might be the reason someone else reads it.
Very true.
For example, there was a book called The Night Circus, which is a beautiful book by Erin Morgenstein. And I read it. I liked the cover of it and was very interested in it. And I actually read it because of a bad review. There was a review that said, this book is too complicated and it's all about circus life and it's magic and mystery. And I don't like it. And I was like, magic, mystery, and circus. Like, I'm all in. Like, I ran and got that book. So and sometimes those bad reviews are actually good because like I said, they tell readers what to expect from the book.
Yeah, that's genius and very true. I Paul and I are notorious like that for movies. If there's a
Hmm.
bad review for a movie, we'll totally ignore it and just watch the movie anyway. So, who are some of your biggest influencers as a writer, and how have they shaped your work?
I think in terms of being a writer, just overall people that I've met and interacted with over the years. Marissa Meyer is a good friend of mine. She wrote Lunar Chronicles, Renegades, Heartlet, the list goes on and on and on. Annie Sullivan is another good friend of mine. She wrote A Touch of Gold and Tiger Queen. And I think watching what they go through and how dedicated and how much energy they put into it, balanced with the love of what they do and the craft that they're able to hone, I think that that's inspirational in and of itself. And our writing styles and techniques are very different. But from one writer to another, anytime that you see someone who is sort of living the dream, I think it uplifts you and it makes you want to chase it yourself.
Yeah, that's beautiful and so true. That's cool. So, if you could cast the lead for More Than Life in a movie, who would you choose? The two
So this is
leads.
hard because I'm really old.
That's what?
So I'm a little bit older and I don't watch a lot of TV. So I don't have a lot of like new actors that I could say would be great for those roles. I think that the actress that played Emily Shea Mills on Pretty Little Liars, she would have been great as Cordelia. And then there's a Russian actor called Killian Lutz that I think would be really good for Jaspar because Jaspar has like a sort of Middle Eastern, European Eastern heritage and culture. I
Okay.
would love the actress that plays Mrs. Weasley. I would love for her to play Gladys. That would be iconic. That would make me very happy. And then maybe the captain. Oh, you know what? My dad always loved Tim Allen, so Tim Allen can play the captain.
That sounds good. So, what's your favorite guilty pleasure trope in romance?
A slow burn.
Okay. Just
For
like you
sure,
said about
slow
your
burn.
marriage.
Yeah, for sure. Slow burn is great. You really have a lot of time to build that tension and that will they, won't they, and what does every little touch and every little word mean? And I love slow burn. I think it's so easy to build that tension and get your heart racing and you're so anticipating every single move that goes forward. So definitely slow burn.
Nice. What's the most more than life thing that you've ever done in real life?
Goodness.
We'll try and, the first chapter aside, we'll try and stick to some of the energetic, happy things that
Yeah.
are in your book.
I don't know. There's a lot that I haven't gotten to actually experience with it being historical fiction and stuff. There are definitely real life moments that made their way into the book. For example, there's a scene where Cordelia accidentally slams a door and she apologizes to the door because I am constantly apologizing to inanimate objects when I walk into them, and I just thought it would be fun to sort of characterize her that way. There's another scene, which is so funny because I've learned from readers that it's one of their favorite scenes in the books. But there's a scene where she has to chuck oysters, but she's too afraid, she's embarrassed to ask, like, how to do it. So she just starts chucking oysters with her hands. She doesn't know that you need a knife. That is inspired because I love this. There's a comedic actress, Melissa McCarthy, who I adore. And years ago, she did an interview where she said that happened to her. It was her first job at a seafood restaurant. The chef was really mean and she was scared to ask for help. So she ended up chucking a bunch of oysters by hand. And I was like, oh, this is a seafaring kingdom. She works in a tavern. Like, I gotta find a way to make this work. So that found its way in. And actually, funnily enough, that's one of people's favorite scenes is the oyster scene.
That is hilarious. That's so funny. So if you could write a crossover between the More Than Life series and any other book, what crossover would you choose?
Oh my goodness. Any other book in the whole world?
Any other book.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
It's kind of just
Uh,
an off the wall question.
maybe, no, maybe Glittering Court by Rochelle Mead.
Okay.
It's a very different story, but they're both in like fictional worlds set in the 1700s. So maybe,
Okay.
yeah.
I haven't read that book. So what would be appealing about that kind of crossover?
The main character, she leads her life as a lady of society. And she ends up going to like a finishing school, but it's not the finishing school she thought it was. And she sort of has to hide who she is, which is what Jaspar does in this book. So maybe that could be a crossover of some kind. For
And the two of
whatever
them
reason,
could
I
chuck
just can't
oysters
think of.
together.
Yeah, they can chuck oysters together.
So what's next for you?
So I'm working on a spinoff right now, More Than Dreams and More Than Destiny, which have like Princess Diaries 2 vibes. If anybody ever watched that, the movie, not the book. The book is very different. They're not even in the same league. That's a topic for another day. Uh, I really loved, I really, and luckily so did readers and so did my manager and my publisher. So right now I'm working on More Than Dreams and More Than Destiny, which tells their side of the story.
Beautiful. So the first series is a series of three, and then the second two are in the same world, same time frame, and the only it's just two different characters.
It's just two different characters, yes.
Beautiful.
We do see some of our favorites from the trilogy come back, but their story is completed in the last book in More Than Love. So now we're moving on to new characters, but we're staying in the world of Myceria and Quallaris.
I like the fact that you finish your series the way that you finish it because there's a lot of people who I'll use my sister for an example because she already knew when she read Onyx Storm that Rebecca Yarros was taking a little break. And
Yes.
so when she got to the end of that book, she wanted to throw it across the room. She was so furious. So I think there's a lot of people that truly appreciate your line of thinking with how you write, that you complete the story so that there's, no book throwing.
Well, for me personally, I've had that experience where I've read a book and it ends on a cliffhanger and I'm so desperate for that next book. But then, a year goes by, 2 years go by, or if you're Game of Thrones, 18 years go by,
Or Patrick Rothfuss, he's just as bad.
right? Um, that love that you had for those characters, that emotional connection you had with that cliffhanger, that all expired a long time ago. A long time ago. And that anticipation you had is just gone. You barely even remembered it. And for me, I knew that, and going forward in life, like I can't publish a book without everything else being written. Because what if I want to change it? But then if I have all three books already written, why would I not publish them?
Yeah.
Like, why would I hold on to that book for a year just to follow the circle of publishing where it's supposed to be like one book every year? And luckily, my publisher has the same mindset. So, yeah, all of my books come out very quickly. More Than Love came out in April of last year, and More Than Dreams will be out later this year. So, there's only a year and a half between even the spinoff. And the spinoff, the books are going to come out within a month or two of each other as well.
Nice. That's so
And
cool.
I will say part of why I do that is because my cliffhangers are what I'm known for. So I will warn everyone that the cliffhanger is huge. There's even a warning on the back of the book and on Amazon that says warning, this book ends on a cliffhanger. But there are more books and they're already out and available. You don't have to wait for them.
That's awesome. That's genius, I think. Perfectly genius. So, if you want to show off your book and tell people where
Hmm.
they can find you, this is the first of the three.
Yes.
So, where can people find you and where can they buy your books?
My books are available everywhere. The ebook is really accessible because it's only $2.99. You can also read it on Kindle Unlimited. You can find all of my books at Barnes& and Noble, Books A Million, Walmart. You could also order them on Amazon. If you want a signed copy, you can go to my website. If you get it from my website, I have like bookmarks and stickers and a little tiny like compass that I send anytime somebody orders a signed copy, and I wrap it with a little string. So,
Nice.
but you can also find me everywhere, BethanyFingerAuthor.com. I'm on Instagram and I love books. So even if you don't want to talk about mine, feel free to stop by and talk anyway.
Oh, that's beautiful. And audiobook, do you have an audiobook yet?
Not yet, but I've actually started the audition process. So I'm listening. I've got some narrators that I'm going to be listening to very soon, actually, and getting to determine who's going to be Cordelia and who's going to be Jaspar.
Nice. Choose wisely. It makes or
Yes,
breaks it.
it does. I agree. It does.
So, finally, what do you hope readers take away from More Than Life after they've read it?
I hope that readers will realize that the human experience of going through the joys and the downsides and the ups and the downs and the happy and the sad of life is something we're really lucky to have. And it's really easy to forget just how lucky we are sometimes. And I think watching what Cordelia goes through reminds us of all the things we have to be really grateful for.
Yeah, it's beautiful and so very true. So thank you, Bethany. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and I'm actually quite excited about this series. I'll be going away sometime soon, so I'll have to maybe bring that one with me because
I
I'm
hope
a
so.
I'm a candle maker, so I listen to a lot of audiobooks
Hmm.
because I'm working with my hands all the time, and that's the only chance I get to really read because I'm writing when I have time otherwise. So I really like that concept. I really think that whole story that you've expressed is very intriguing. So I'm
Thank
excited
you.
to give it a shot. And I
I
might
hope you
pop
like
onto your
it.
website and see where that goes.
I really hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope to get an update when the next two come out and be able to see how they go too.
Yes, I'm excited for everybody to read them.
No doubt. Thank you again so much.
Thank you.